Kylen, it's been a while since we've done a live edition of Locked On Warriors, so we're going to be taking whatever people write in the chat. Jonathan Kuminga is in the news, not for the right reasons. We'll tell you about that. The Kevin Durant saga is pretty much at an end. It's been resolved. We're going to break all this stuff down with Kylen Mills next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can follow KRON for sports anchor Kylen Mills on Twitter at Kylen Mills. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at Dog Surf Roadshow. California King, yes, you are first in there. I thought that was a trend that ended 5 years ago, but apparently the first thing is still a real thing. Thank you, California King. Kylen, how are you doing today? It's a warm day in the Bay Area. What's going on in your world? How are you, kid?
Beautiful day in the Bay Area. Everything's going well. Whenever we get done with this, I'm actually going to kick a soccer ball around at 8 o'clock tonight. So trying to keep my fitness level up and keep myself from becoming old and frail now that I'm in my 30s. It's, a tough life. But, we had some movement today in the basketball world, which I'm excited to talk about.
Oh, there's a lot to talk about. And California King also added, I hear reports about Jonathan Kuminga not being focused and being distracted. This is not necessarily news, but the reason why this came up, and we'll start with that. Stephen A. Smith, the host of First Take on ESPN, was on vacation, not vacation, but I think he had shoulder surgery. He was out for 5 or 6 weeks. He comes back, and in his first week back, he starts talking about the Golden State Warriors. I stand corrected, the defending world champion Golden State Warriors. And this is why this became newsworthy. Stephen A. Smith started talking about Jonathan Kuminga, the prize now second-year player, former number 7 pick. And here's Stephen A. and what he said.
To be significant, I'm worried about Kuminga. I'm hearing too many things about him off the court in terms of his head, the discipline that he lacks. You understand? Some of the foolishness. I'm not getting in this personal business. I'm not saying nothing like that. I'm talking attitude. I'm not talking actions. I'm saying that attitude, the level of focus, commitment, determination, just putting your head down, doing the work. I'm hearing that he's shortchanging the Warriors in that regard, and he got to get his act together because I'm a Jonathan Kuminga fan.
Well, first things first, Stephen A. Smith has repeatedly alluded to having a source within the Warriors. The last time he brought it up, though, he started talking about how his source was complaining that the Warriors don't have enough minority representation in their front office and on the coaching staff. That tells me it's probably not Bob Myers or Steve Kerr who is a source. But regardless, this isn't necessarily news. Draymond Green has alluded to this publicly. Kevon Looney has alluded to this publicly. And even Andre Iguodala has alluded publicly that Jonathan Kuminga has a bit of arrogance to him. I've also heard from sources myself behind the scenes that this is true, that Kuminga just does not like to listen often, that he does have a bit of a superstar mentality, maybe a diva approach that goes with it. He's still a teenager. Maybe it's just as simple as immaturity. Kylen, your thoughts on Jonathan Kuminga, the prize Warriors youngster, potentially being a problem in terms of his behavior as the Warriors set to defend their title?
Echoing some things that you said, Cyrus, I've heard the exact same. And like you said, several Warriors players have talked openly about it. And I remember specifically Andre Iguodala and Draymond Green a couple of times throughout the season mentioned that Kuminga was getting better at being coached and listening and at, making some of the changes to his game that the Warriors were asking him to make, or maybe putting in certain work that the Warriors wanted him to put in. But along with that goes the fact that when he came in as a rookie, he wasn't necessarily as coachable and he didn't necessarily have the attitude that they wanted him to have. And maybe, like you said, he came in with a little bit of a superstar mentality. Definitely problematic. However, I think he's still young and immaturity has got to be a factor in that. I mean, with both of Moody and Kuminga, they came into this team and came into, a team that has really high expectations, very, very young. I think immaturity has got to be considered a factor when you've got 19-year-olds playing with men. That being said, you've got to change that attitude quickly, because one of the most important things in order to get better in the NBA is A, putting your head down and working, which Stephen A. Smith talked about, and B, not having an attitude when it comes to taking direction, suggestions, advice, coaching tips from especially some of these older veteran players like Draymond Green and Andre Iguodala, who are NBA champions. Like, when you look at either of their pedigree, like, there's absolutely no reason why you, a 19-year-old rookie, should not be listening to those players or to be giving them any kind of attitude. So I think it is concerning when you hear things like that. However, with a young player, there's definitely room, I think, still to improve, and for him maybe to become more coachable and to grasp some more. I think it's honestly, for me, I think it's ultimately maturity level. I think that's a big, big, big factor. The maturity in order to be able to see that you need to really be learning from these guys and taking advantage of the time that you have with Andre Iguodala and Draymond Green. Like, he should be picking their brains. You know, some of these Warriors superstars and their veterans, he should be picking their brains and trying to learn and soak in as much as he can, versus the other side of not wanting to listen and thinking that you know it all. So yes, it's concerning, but also I think there's still time. He's young. Hopefully there's a change in attitude this season. Hopefully he's able to see that there's a lot to be learned from these veteran players and the staff.
You're absolutely right. The only thing about all of this that concerns me legitimately is the fact that Jonathan Kuminga once called Kyrie Irving, a man who for approximately a year believed and perpetuated that the earth is flat. Take away all the anti-vax stuff. Okay, let's focus just on the fact that an adult, a man who is in his late 20s, honestly thought for a year of his life that the earth is flat. Just think about that for a second. All right, that is an utter, that is such an insult to anyone's intelligence. And for someone of his stature, of his influence, to be perpetuating such a ridiculous falsehood, it just was mind-blowing. I immediately lost all respect for that human being after that. Take away the fact that he just wanted to leave the Cleveland Cavaliers because he wanted his own team. Take away the fact that he misled the Boston franchise, by claiming he wanted to stay there and lead that team, and then left just a year or two later with mixed results. Take away the fact that in Brooklyn, he hasn't done a single damn thing except put up individual stats. Kyrie Irving is just not a human being I'm a huge fan of. Jonathan Kuminga called Kyrie Irving, quote, one of my biggest mentors, unquote. That is a huge flag for me. If there's anything that Jonathan Kuminga needs to do, and if there's anything the Warriors players, coaching staff, and front office needs to do, it's get Jonathan Kuminga as far away as possible from Kyrie Irving, someone who I do not want influencing my young players. I also want to share with you something else that adds to why this is kind of peculiar. This is a comment from a former Sacramento Kings head coach. I think Eric Musselman was the Warriors head coach. I'm actually, this was so long ago.
He was, yes.
Now. Yeah, so former Warriors head coach Eric Musselman, who's now the head coach for the Arkansas Razorbacks, Moses Moody's former head coach. He replied to me actually in a post that I wrote talking about the Warriors' two prize youngsters, Kuminga and Moody. He replied to me, in 1 year with the Razorbacks, Moses Moody showed consistency of personality and consistency of production. Moses had a nonstop work ethic. He was responsible and dedicated. Moses had the will to get better through nonstop player development. The reason why I bring that up is because Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga were drafted together. These are two players who are near the same age. Yet right now, if you ask me which one is more NBA ready, which one can step on the court and have a profound impact, I'm going to say Moses Moody. He looks like he has his head on his shoulders much more so than Jonathan Kuminga does. We haven't heard a single negative thing about Moses Moody. So there's a contrast there. These are two things you can compare with each other. And by comparison, Kuminga's not looking good. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that there is a big contrast between Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody and the way they approach the game and approach joining this Warriors team. It's funny because Moses Moody, as far as maturity goes, couldn't be more opposite of Jonathan Kuminga. We've heard players on the team say all season long that he has like an 80-year-old soul. Moses Moody does, but he also brings a really, really high level of maturity for a 19-year-old when it comes to his approach for the game. And I heard him, several times and talk with him specifically in post game and asking him some questions, just that, like, I'm waiting for my time. I'm staying ready. I'm putting my head down and working. Whenever my number is called, I'm going to be ready. I'll do whatever it takes for this team. And like, you just don't hear some of those same, you don't hear necessarily that same approach from Jonathan Kuminga. And I also noticed, as far as picking up the Warriors system, knowing where to be on defense, where to slide, where to help, when to step out. Like, to me, Moses Moody is light years ahead of Jonathan Kuminga and seems to have a lot more focus and discipline on defense and seems to have adapted much more quickly to the Warriors system than Jonathan Kuminga. And it's interesting because I think there's no question that Kuminga has the physical tools to outplay Moody and to really reach a higher potential. But if the work ethic, the right attitude, the focus, the determination, all these intangibles you talk about aren't there, then it doesn't mean that Kuminga is necessarily going to get there. Like, you have to have all the things around it. And when you look at some of the biggest superstars in the league, like, they didn't just get there by chance, and they didn't just get there by thinking they know it all. And like, Steph Curry is a great example of that, of being a humble superstar who at no point in his career has walked in with a diva attitude anywhere, despite the fact that he's the greatest player in the game, the greatest shooter in the game, one of the greatest players in the game, top 10 all time to me after the season. So I think that Kuminga should be looking at that and trying to take a page out of his book. And again, so many of the Warriors veterans books, like, these are players he should be picking their brains and really trying to learn from during this time as a 19-year-old. But like I said, I don't want to necessarily give up on Jonathan Kuminga, because if he's 27 years old and not coachable and doesn't have the right attitude, that's one thing. He's 19, 20 years old. Like, I'm really hoping he can open his eyes and see, and potentially some of these veterans can get through to him. However, Moses Moody absolutely, to me, is more NBA ready right now, has adjusted to the Warrior system, appears to be more focused, have the right attitude, and, right now is the player who's more ready to make an impact on the game.
Yeah, it's a very, very well said, Kylen. I want to play a few comments here, or show a few comments. I'll read them out loud since we are doing a live show. It's been a while since we've gone live. Thanks for doing this with me today, Kylen. Haha writes, to be fair, all Moody has to do is play defense and shoot. Kuminga has a much higher ceiling, so it will take longer, like Wiseman. I don't know if I agree with that assessment. Moody has to do a lot more than just play defense and shoot. He can be the complete package. And he's developing into a wonderful player. I do also agree that Kuminga has a higher ceiling, but again, he is more raw. He came into his rookie season clearly needing to develop more than Moody did. Moody playing for Arkansas and a former NBA head coach in Eric Musselman. So he got some great mentorship there, got some great leadership and coaching there. Donovan Burrell writes, I'm worried about Kuminga. Okay, poor grammar there, but that's okay. And then Nick J writes, you could tell in Summer League Kuminga was pressing and then showed bad body language, in my opinion. Drafted 7th means nothing, kid. You better work hard to be out of the league. I just want to add, he did in Summer League, Kuminga had a poor first game, but then he turned it around and actually played tremendously in the rest of those. And Nick Ellert is also writes a very astute comment. Do we expect Kuminga to be a 27-year-old veteran? No, absolutely not. So
no, but that's the point. He needs to be at this young age. He needs to be coachable, and he needs to be bringing in the right attitude of learning from the Warriors veterans. Not that we expect him to be a 27-year-old. My point was that there's still hope for Jonathan Kuminga, even if right now necessarily he doesn't have the right attitude, or he has a lot to learn. He's immature. He's still young. That was my point in bringing up 27 years old. My point is that there's still hope for him. He's still super young. And while some of these concerns are valid, he can still learn. I think that he can still learn. And the hope is that some of these Warriors veterans get through to him and, hey, really show him the way. Here's the work you got to put in. Here's the attitude you got to have. Here's what you need to do if you want to be a champion like we are, because these Warriors veterans are, champions of champions. So they're the people he should be learning from.
You're absolutely right. And Rick B adds, and justifiably so, that Kuminga is only 19 years old. I don't think Kylen, I think I speak for all of us in saying we're not attacking him. There's no panic buttons being pressed here, but he is saying and doing things that does cause a little consternation. But he's so young. I mean, for all we know, the season's going to start. He's going to blow us out of the water, and this will all be a completely moot point. In just a moment, I'm going to play a hilarious video of Warriors owner Joe Lacob that I somehow missed when I was on vacation. Kylen, I don't know if you saw this. I don't know where it came from, but I think you might enjoy it, Dub Nation, when you see this. But first, I got to give some love to a longtime sponsor that's kind of changed up a little bit. Truebill has changed its name to Rocket Money. And we'll tell you what we heard. Truebill, which is now backed by Rocket Companies, has grown from a bill management app into a full-on personal finance empowerment tool that helps over 3.4 million people with budgeting, lowering bills, canceling subscriptions, and much more, saving each of their members an average of $700 a year. When I used Truebill, which is now known as Rocket Money, I found out I was subscribing to a lot of stuff that I did not need or want, and I ended up saving over $1,000 a year in subscriptions. So the next evolution in Truebill's story is a new name, Rocket Money. It's everything that I've loved about Truebill, but with a fresh look and feel. So start canceling your unused subscriptions and save money at rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba. Again, that's rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba, or you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For your second listen, get up to date on the latest news and rumors in the NBA in just 30 minutes every day with Locked On NBA. Locked On NBA, your daily NBA update in just 30 minutes. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter at Kylen Mills, and you can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at Dog Surf Roadshow. Joe Lacob, again, I don't know where this video came from. I stumbled across it today, and I was just laughing out loud, literally, because I just loved it. And this plays off the Stephen A. Smith comments from earlier where he was talking about Jonathan Kuminga. But Joe Lacob, again, I'm guessing this is from his girlfriend or wife. Maybe the Instagram account, maybe some sort of Instagram store. You saw this too?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a funny just clip from Joe Lacob. Take a listen or take a look.
Joe, wake up. First take is on.
Go away.
Stephen A. is back.
He's back? Stephen A. is back. He's the only one that believed in us. Welcome back, Stephen A.
Joe.
That was it. And just for the record, I also picked the Warriors to win the championship last year, but on the national stage, it was Stephen A. Smith, clearly. What is that from? Do you think that was his wife or girl? I can't remember if he's married or has a girlfriend, but she has a social media presence. Do you think she's the one who produced that? Do you know anything about it?
I have no idea, but I do believe it's his wife. He has a wife, and I actually have the most random funny story about meeting her. After a bunch of live shots, during one of the postseason games, I don't remember what game it was, but there were a bunch of us after the game hanging around to do like live shots at like 10 or 11 o'clock for local news stations, network stations that were there. And she walks into the gym and she's kind of just like looking around, and it's empty at this point. And she's looking around, and then finally someone's like, "Hey, can I help you, or do you need help?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm trying to find anyone who might have a set of keys. Like, I'm Joe Lacob's wife, and we're trying to get out, and he forgot his keys." And he like couldn't, I don't know specifically where they were, because obviously you can like get out of the building, but like they were trying to like get into an office to get his stuff and leave. And he had like lost or misplaced his keys, and his wife was just like wandering around trying to find someone in security who could let them in. I don't know why, but I just thought that was so hilarious. Like a lot of people who were there covering the game like didn't recognize her and were just like, "Who's this lady like wandering around?" She was looking all confused, like lost, and she's like, "Oh, I'm Joe Lacob's wife." We're like, "Oh, we cannot let you into his office. We don't have any keys, but we could try to help you." It was just funny. And I have no idea who produced that, but that was kind of hysterical. I love that he's sleeping with the trophy, that he whips open the covers and the trophy pops up with him.
Great acting job. Just the whole look of surprise. This bravo, Joe Lacob, the best owner in the NBA. Kudos. And I think Nicole is his wife's name. And she has a social media presence. She has been known to do somewhat edgy things from time to time in terms of talking smack toward other teams, defending her husband and, of course, their team, the Golden State Warriors. So that was pretty funny. I want to first answer a question from Nick J, asking when I'm going to be back on the Krug Show season opener. Hell yeah. Larry Krueger is going to be on the show next week, and I'll definitely be making appearances with him in a little bit. I believe the name here is Noemi Estrada, a.k.a. Amy. Hello, Cyrus, Kylen, and to all here, Warriors solid fan here watching from Hong Kong. Welcome. The international community representing. Good stuff. Let's shift gears here to a topic that everyone loves to talk about. I've never once heard any complaints when I bring his name up, and that's Kevin Durant. Everyone loves discussing the former Golden State Warrior. He's officially going to be staying with the Brooklyn Nets. I don't know what happened. Do you have any insights? I guess tell the audience what happened exactly, Kylen, if you're familiar with it.
Dude, I don't know what happened because nothing has ever really truly been made public, and he's never explained why he requested the trade in the first place. There, of course, has been a lot of speculation, different reports out. So I don't really know what it was that clearly caused him to request the trade and then now ultimately end up reversing course. But he's staying. One thing I will say is that I called it maybe 6 weeks ago. I said, with every day that passes, the likelihood is increasing exponentially that Kevin Durant is going to end up staying with the Brooklyn Nets. And I think that's exactly what they wanted. They were trying to drag out and drag on the trade prospect process. They were asking for ridiculous things from some of these other teams based on what the reports that were out. And ultimately, I think the Nets got what they wanted, and they got another at least year season out of Kevin Durant, and Durant will be teaming up with Kyrie again. They added, some additional pieces in Ben Simmons and Seth Curry, and, they're going to make a run at it again.
Yeah, and I want to play this clip. So Kevin Durant was on David Letterman's show on Netflix. And he admitted something which may be obvious, might not be obvious. And I had a whole discussion about this with Rick Barry. I can't remember if it was on yesterday's show, if it was on the Rick Barry show. But here's Kevin Durant with David Letterman, and the subject came up. The subject was marijuana. Let's hear what they had to say.
Explain what it does that people might misunderstand about it.
To me, it clears the distractions out your brain a little bit. Sits you down. It's like having a glass of wine.
Yeah. So did you smoke today?
Yeah.
And you're just fine.
I'm actually high right now.
Was that the biggest, poo-eating grin you've ever seen on Kevin Durant's face? I've never seen him smile harder in my life than at the very end.
Possibly, yeah.
It's weird that so many players, I can't get high and do athletics. I've done it with surfing. I don't know why that worked a little bit. I've tried it with basketball. Totally does not work. My shot's off. I can't handle the rock. I'm like discombobulated out there. Can you play soccer high, Kylen? Or I know you're
no, and that's an anomaly I don't understand that I could go into for hours. But my husband likes to smoke and then be productive and or work out. Like he has worked out before or afterwards and says he feels great. And or is like super productive. Like I'm melting into the couch. I don't get people who can play sports high. That's all I'm gonna say.
It is funny though. You're right. I can't, like I said, I'm all about just chilling at night. It is like wine for me as well. That's how I treat it. And I got to show this picture here. I actually got a screen capture of Kevin Durant at that moment. Look at that smile. Look at that. Those pearly whites. I've never seen them shine so bright. I've never seen the jawline angled that way before. His cheekbones are as high as they've ever been. KD just loves his weed, man. And more power to you, kid. More power to you. Anything else we want to cover?
Well, so I mean, now I think the dominoes have fallen. So I think there's going to be a lot more dominoes to fall as far as free agency because Kevin Durant was holding up a lot. I think it's good news for the Warriors that KD didn't end up somewhere in the West because a lot of the teams that were potential targets were going to be teams that could be, competing with the Warriors for the Western Conference title. Especially as of late, the Memphis Grizzlies were in talks to trade Kevin Durant, and supposedly they didn't want to let go of a lot of their young players. They were looking to try to trade just like a ton of draft picks and keep Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane, which is what I read. And that did scare me a little bit, depending on what pieces they would have been able to keep. The Grizzlies potentially adding Kevin Durant and then still keeping some of those long and tall and physical players they have. So I didn't like the sound of that. So I think that's ultimately good news for the Warriors. And then, looking at this Nets team, I think they can be contenders in the East, but also on paper, they should have been contenders in the East the last several seasons since they signed Kevin Durant and he teamed up with Kyrie. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in Brooklyn because on paper, every single season, like they should be Eastern Conference contenders, and then they end up eliminated in the first round. However, I do like some of the pieces that they've added. They've added some nice shooters. They've added a little bit of depth. So I think it'll be interesting to see. Will the Warriors end up facing the Nets at any point? I guess it would have to be the very last round of the postseason, wouldn't it? The NBA Finals. So curious to see how it shakes out in Brooklyn, but I think it's good news for the Warriors that KD isn't somewhere in the West. I also think it's good news the Warriors didn't end up trading for KD, and they end up sticking with their young pieces and the players they have right now to contend really to defend the title. And I think there's absolutely no reason why the Warriors can't or shouldn't go back to back.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. I got to play this comment real quick because for some reason there's still a lot of Kyrie defenders out there. Jamar Neighbors, you write, bro, get a life. Disrespecting Kyrie. First of all, clean up the grammar, folks. This is ridiculous. I mean, if you're going to defend Kyrie, at least learn how to write effectively. But I'll try to read this properly. Bro, get a life. Disrespecting Kyrie. If believe me, he earth flat. Let him believe that doesn't affect your life. Okay, I think what you're trying to say is if that's what he believes, that's what he believes. Why do you care? I care because he's an influential human being. And because a lot of kids, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of young adults, children, even full-grown adults, are sadly influenced by people who are as prominent and who has reached the stature that Kyrie Irving has reached. So when someone of his influence is perpetuating such a moronic line, like the earth is flat, and you have absolutely no evidence to substantiate that, we all have to share this society we live in together, okay? So sorry if I take issue with someone as prominent as Kyrie Irving perpetuating pure and utter moronic stupidity like the earth is flat. And on top of that, what it does is that it damages credibility. So 3 years after that, when he's sitting here saying, I don't want to put a vaccine in my body that experts, that scientists have said is perfectly safe for you, people first of all, your credibility is damaged. I can't believe anything that you're saying. But on top of that, people are still believing you. I just run the comments right here. You got this moron sitting here saying, what's your name again? Jamar Neighbors, who can't even write a complete sentence, sitting here telling me, why does it bother you? It bothers me because he is a high-profile individual who has a lot of influence on a lot of other people that I'm probably going to have to interact with in this world that we all share together. So that's my problem with it. Kyrie Irving is a moron. The earth flat. He was literally saying for a year that the earth is flat. And folks, in case you're wondering what the stupidity is, and Kylen, I don't know if you learned about this and when you're doing your university studies, there's a philosophy called postmodernism, which has really corrupted this planet. I'm sorry to go off on a diatribe here for a second, but bear with me. Postmodernism basically, in a nutshell, states that question everything. Right? Like who knows if anything is true in this world? And look, in theory, there's some truth to that, but you're going to drive yourself insane following that philosophy in life because there just is not enough time to literally research every single little thing that is presented in front of you. Sometimes you just need to listen to the experts, accept it, and move on. So when every expert is telling you the earth is round, when there is endless evidence supporting it, and the only oppositional evidence is some kook on YouTube who makes some ridiculous video, dude, just use this brain that we're all gifted with, folks, please. And do not believe morons like Kyrie Irving who are sitting here perpetuating endless lies, thinking that burning a sage in a locker room is going to get rid of evil spirits, and who thinks the earth is flat. The guy drives me crazy. And if you're getting tired of this diatribe, by the way, Casey Stern is going to join me tomorrow. He loves Kyrie Irving. I'm being facetious saying that. Kyrie Irving is his least favorite human being on the planet. And I'm going to give Casey Stern a large platform to go off on Kyrie Irving. Kylen, any thoughts on my whole rant right there?
No, I mean, I think it is problematic anytime any person who is in a position of power and who's influential, and you have to remember just how influential in America today the biggest athletes are. They have a huge influence not only on, young athletes, kids, adults, parents, when they are perpetuating fake news, false information. We've seen, how damaging perpetuating fake news can be, or false reports and things of that nature during the elections recently. And I think it carries over into theories about anything. When you're perpetuating something that is false, something that is easily provable to be fake, I understand. I agree that that's problematic. I don't really know that I have words for thinking the earth is flat. I don't know. Like you said, the evidence is too long to prove that it's not. Like, I don't. That theory was just wild. Like,
Yeah,
the Earth
what
is
drives me
flat.
crazy about
That was pretty wild.
And what drives me crazy about Kyrie is that he has this arrogance in thinking that he's right until he eventually succumbs to so much peer pressure telling him, dude, you're out of your mind saying this stuff. It took him a year to back off those statements, a freaking year to back off what is very common knowledge that you could literally see with your own eye. You can see the bend at the curvature of this planet with your own eye if you're in the right position. This Earth is not flat. I don't know what does meta mean, by the way. I'm seeing someone else say this person AM PM mobile repair rights meta is trash. I don't know what that means. Yeah. Anyways, but and for the record, you also write for the vaccine deal, everything they told us was false. No, it wasn't. Who's telling you that? I don't know what to tell you. Oh, Meta is Facebook. Okay, yeah, Facebook is trash too. It's just a platform full of misinformation. Anyways, I can go on and about that forever. The great news is, look, ultimately, Jonathan Kuminga, I think is going to be okay. That was the premise of our show. I think he's going to be fine. Any last thoughts before we're done?
Yeah, I think that Jonathan Kuminga is still really young and has plenty of time to learn, and hopefully he does adapt his attitude, buckle down, and that we'll see a huge season from him, as well as Moses Moody, who, as we've mentioned, is maybe just a little bit farther along as far as the maturity goes and picking up the Warriors system and, really having the right attitude. And he has a veteran attitude that's far beyond his years, so that bodes well for him as well. I just can't get over the Earth is flat. As far as the KD thing, I think it's good news for the Warriors that KD has not ended up in the West. I think the Warriors are clear favorites to make it to the NBA Finals. I think there's no reason why the Warriors can't repeat as NBA Finals. For whatever reason is, Kyrie and KD have not been able to succeed in Brooklyn. Those two coming together on paper should have made them immediate title contenders. They haven't come even close. The Nets did make some nice offseason moves. I like the addition of TJ Warren and a couple other pieces they added. Obviously, the trade last season for Ben Simmons and Seth Curry could both be key additions. But I don't know. For whatever reason, the Nets don't scare me. And I think the Warriors should absolutely repeat in 2022-23.
Let me ask you this. Well, I'll end on this note. Since on the live shows, we see all these comments coming in. And first of all, yeah, we have 62 people watching us live, but the audience numbers for our show goes in the tens of thousands. For the person who said there's only 64 people here discussing this, it's true, but it's going to be a lot more people watching in the big picture. Name your all-time starting five for the Golden State Warriors. I talked about this with Rick Barry yesterday. Who is your all-time starting five? Point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center, who have played for the Golden State Warriors. Who is your five, Kylen? Putting you on the spot right now.
So I've got to say Steph at point guard, KD at forward, Wilt Chamberlain.
Good call.
At center.
So we have Stephen Curry as your all-time point guard. We have Kevin Durant as your all-time small forward. Wilt Chamberlain as your all-time center. That's 3 out of 5.
I know. So some other names that come to mind, like, did Rick Barry, I'm curious, did he put himself in there?
Of course. And I don't blame him. Yeah. He's not short on confidence. And I would have too. Rick has to be in there.
That's what I'm thinking, Rick, and I'm just trying to figure how this lineup would look with the personnel that I'm saying right now, because it's so interesting when you combine genres or generations of players. But I feel like you've got to put Rick in there.
Of course.
But easily.
So you have 4 or 5 right now. So you have
so
Steph Curry,
KD, Wilt, Rick.
You're missing a shooting guard.
I know, so that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to think, is Klay Thompson it? I mean, because there's some other greats that come to mind, but I don't know if they necessarily fit that shooting guard spot. Honestly, Chris Mullin, I feel like, has got to be up there. As far as who Tim Hardaway maybe is in the backup point. I still think Steph Curry better all time.
Easily.
Yeah, no questions asked. I'm just trying to think of past Warriors greats aside from Klay Thompson. I don't know. Maybe
I think Klay's safe as your starting shooting guard.
I think Klay,
no disrespect to Mullin, but look, he's a 4-time champion. I mean, in the history of his postseason career, he's only lost once. ever since 2015. I mean, he had the 2013-14 seasons too. So I guess when you count those, he's had 3 playoff series losses in his entire career. AC writes, does Chris Webber's 1 year count? Well, why not? We'll put him on the bench. But I'm totally with you. I think it's Steph, Clay, Rick Barry. I put Kevin Durant at the 4, even though he's more of a small forward, and then Will
That's
Chamberlain
what I was trying
is
to
your
figure
center.
out. Yeah.
What's up?
That's what I was like, oh, how would I put? I guess KD could go 4.
And then, but then your bench is incredible too, because like you said, you got Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond. You got run TMC basically. So you got Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, Chris Mullin, Draymond Green, who I almost had as a starter, but when you can't put him over any of those other 5.
No.
And then maybe Chris Webber. Maybe Chris Webber is your center there. So, anyways, yeah. And then
I think so.
And then Baron Davis is someone who might have to figure a way to slip in there at some point. But yeah, so this is a discussion Rick Barry and I had on yesterday's Locked On Warriors. So folks, think about that. If you want to at some point, find us on Twitter and tell us some names we might have forgotten. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter at Kylen Mills. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at Dog Surf Roadshow, and this program on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. Anything else? Are we good? Are we done? I mentioned Mitch Richmond. Nick Ellard, in case you're wondering, he was included in there as a bench, as the back.
Yeah, I agree. I would say I'd have him on the team. I don't know that I could put him in the starting 5.
And Andre Iguodala needs to be in there too somewhere. Shoot, I forgot about him. I would forgot about him.
Bench, load up the bench. I mean, Warriors all-time greats, especially based on the last dynasty over the last freaking 10 years. I mean, there's no shortage of great players.
True. There you go. So, all right, Kylen. Well, we'll do this again soon. Again, the process. We're in the process of making you an official part of this show. Sorry, I got distracted. This AM PM mobile repair, you're driving me crazy. You wrote hashtag keep an open mind on flat Earth. Sure thing, pal. Whatever you say. Oh, and Nick Ellard. Yes, of course, the great Patrick O'Brien, 2006 first round draft pick. We put him over Wilt. Yeah, easily. Thanks, Nick. I totally forgot about Patrick O'Brien. Might as well throw in Todd Fuller in there, too. We got to throw him in there as well, who the Warriors picked over before Kobe Bryant. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's so many names we could throw in there. But, yeah, anyways. I think we're done. It was a good live show. We haven't been live in a long time, Kylen. Was that a good experience for you? Bad experience? Do you like the live thing? What do you think?
Oh, I love getting comments and getting to talk back and forth and chat with people. We got to do live again. So thank you, everyone who joined us live, because it's fun.
Absolutely. And AM/PM mobile repair. Love the troll job. Good stuff. Oh, look at all these names. Ike Diagu, the former power forward. Look at these names. Look at you, folks. Wow. So brilliant. All right. We'll be back soon. Thank you. Yeah, we're done. All right. Later. Thanks for joining us, folks. Oh, and real quick before we go, yes, shout out from AC to Sleepy Floyd, the legend. Good call on that. We'll end on that note. Later, everyone. Thanks, Kylen. Boy.